We're taught that the Egyptian pyramids mark the dawn of ancient engineering. But across the world, buried beneath our feet, are structures even older. Tunnels, tombs, temples, and entire cities carved from rock. Forgotten by time. Built by hands we barely understand. The Great Pyramid of Giza, completed around 2560 BCE, has long stood as humanity's symbol of ancient genius. A monument so precise and enduring that it redefined what civilization meant. For centuries, historians viewed the pyramids as the dawn of complex architecture. The moment humankind learned to shape the world with mathematics, tools, and ambition. But that story is incomplete. Long before the pharaohs commanded the sands of Egypt, other builders, forgotten and nameless, were carving deep into the earth. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that the instinct to build downward is far older than the pyramids themselves. Across Anatolia, Mesopotamia, the Levant, and beyond, people were shaping the ground beneath them into shelters, sanctuaries, and burial chambers thousands of years before Egypt's first dynasty ever rose. They dug into limestone, volcanic rock, and clay, creating spaces of ritual, protection, and survival. These early structures were not monuments to kings. They were testaments to endurance. Beneath modern Turkey, entire cities like Derinkuyu and Cappadocia stretch through layers of stone, predating Egypt's golden age by millennia. In Malta, the Ħal-Saflieni Hypogeum, carved around 4000 BCE, demonstrates a mastery of acoustics and architecture unmatched for its time. Even further back, at Göbekli Tepe, humans carved massive ritual enclosures nearly 12,000 years ago, some with underground features that challenge our understanding of when civilization began. From Anatolia to the Andes, from the Levant to the Indus, these underground worlds reveal a forgotten truth. The first great human projects weren't built into the sky. They were carved into the ground. Hidden beneath layers of soil and time, these places remain silent witnesses to a deeper origin of engineering and belief. One that began not above the horizon, but beneath it. Number 1. Beneath the volcanic rock of Cappadocia in central Turkey lies one of the most astonishing underground structures ever discovered. The ancient city of Derinkuyu. A sprawling multi-level complex carved entirely by hand, it descends over 280 feet below the surface, with a capacity to house as many as 20,000 people, along with livestock, food storage, wells, schools, and places of worship. Derinkuyu isn't a single structure. It's an entire city buried in stone. The exact date of its construction remains debated, but archaeological consensus places its earliest phases in the 8th to 7th millennium BCE, making it older than Egypt's pyramids by thousands of years. Later civilizations, including the Phrygians, Hittites, and Byzantines, expanded and used it. But the original builders remain unknown. The soft volcanic tuff rock of Cappadocia made it possible to carve such vast spaces without modern tools, but the scale of Derinkuyu is still difficult to explain. The city stretches across 18 levels, with complex ventilation shafts, hidden passageways, water wells, and massive rolling stone doors to seal off each level in case of invasion. Some of these doors weigh up to 500 kilograms, designed to be moved from inside only. Derinkuyu wasn't built for convenience. It was built for protection. Throughout Anatolia's long and unstable history, threats of invasion, persecution, and war drove communities underground. At its peak, Derinkuyu may have housed entire populations for weeks or months at a time. Evidence shows that it was connected to other underground cities in the region via kilometers of tunnels, suggesting a much larger subterranean network, a hidden world beneath the Anatolian plateau. The rediscovery of Derinkuyu is recent. In 1963, a local man renovating his home accidentally broke through a wall and uncovered a dark tunnel, the first passage into what would become one of the greatest archaeological surprises of the 20th century. Since then, only a portion of Derinkuyu has been excavated. Most of its lower levels remain closed to researchers, too unstable or dangerous to explore. No one knows exactly who built the first levels, or why such an ambitious underground city was necessary so early in human civilization. But Derinkuyu challenges modern assumptions. It proves that thousands of years before monumental temples or pyramids, ancient people had already begun constructing massive, intelligent, and highly organized structures, not above the earth, but deep within it. Number 2. Hidden beneath the streets of Paola, Malta, lies one of the most mysterious underground structures ever discovered, the Ħal-Saflieni Hypogeum. Carved directly into limestone over 5,000 years ago, it predates the pyramids and stands as one of the world's earliest known underground temples and necropolises. Its construction is attributed to Malta's Neolithic temple culture around 4,000–2,500 BCE. The Hypogeum was never meant to be seen by the living in ordinary light. It is an entirely subterranean complex spanning 3 levels and over 30 chambers, all hewn without the use of metal tools. The upper level served as an entry and ritual area. The middle level functioned primarily for burials. The deepest level, over 10 meters below the surface, appears to have been reserved for water storage and possibly secretive rites. Archaeologists believe the Hypogeum housed the remains of over 7,000 individuals, most of whom were placed in small carved niches along the walls. But this was more than a burial site. It was a deeply sacred space, aligned with spiritual practices that remain difficult to fully interpret. One chamber, known as the Oracle Room, is particularly notable for its extraordinary acoustic properties. A male voice spoken at a certain pitch within the chamber resonates throughout the entire complex, a feature that appears to have been intentionally engineered. What's more, red ochre spiral wall paintings, some of the oldest known in Europe, still adorn parts of the Hypogeum. Their purpose remains unknown, but they hint at a symbolic or ritualistic system now lost to time. Discovered by accident in 1902 during construction work, the Hypogeum quickly became a subject of fascination and confusion. Its isolation, architecture, and acoustics have drawn comparisons to much later sacred architecture. But no written records exist of the people who built it. They left no known language, no known kings, and no surviving cultural lineage. And yet they built something so advanced, it remains intact after 5 millennia underground. The Ħal-Saflieni Hypogeum isn't just old, it is a challenge to conventional timelines of civilization. It suggests that over 1,000 years before the pyramid builders laid their first stone, Neolithic societies in Malta had already achieved not just architectural precision, but spiritual complexity, and were doing so underground. Number 3. In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, near the city of Şanlıurfa, lies a site that has forced historians and archaeologists to rethink the very origin of civilization, Göbekli Tepe. Built nearly 12,000 years ago, it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years and the Egyptian pyramids by over 7,000. But while its monumental stone pillars have captured global attention, few realize that beneath the site lies a hidden story, one carved into the earth itself. Göbekli Tepe is widely considered the world's oldest known temple complex. Circular enclosures of T-shaped limestone pillars, some reaching over 16 feet tall, are decorated with intricate carvings of animals, abstract symbols, and humanoid forms. These carvings were made by people with no known agriculture, no pottery, and no metal tools. Yet the builders quarried, shaped, and erected multi-ton stones with astonishing skill. While the surface structures are monumental, a lesser-known but critical aspect of Göbekli Tepe is its subsurface architecture. Beneath many of the enclosures are carved pits, channels, and foundation trenches dug deep into the bedrock. These subterranean features appear to have been used to anchor the massive pillars or manage ritual activity. In some cases, buried stones or voids beneath enclosures suggest earlier phases of construction, or perhaps deliberate burial of previous temples. The builders didn't just erect Göbekli Tepe, they intentionally covered parts of it with earth. Archaeologists believe that after periods of use, the site was systematically buried, possibly as a form of ritual closure. This act preserved much of the structure in near pristine condition, But it also implies a level of cultural intent and symbolism not expected from so-called primitive societies. Excavations at nearby sites such as Karahan Tepe suggest that Göbekli Tepe was part of a larger ritual landscape with underground elements repeated across the region. These were not isolated monuments. They were part of a network of early sacred sites tied to beliefs, seasons, or the dead. What remains beneath the surface of Göbekli Tepe is still largely unexcavated. Only 5% of the site has been uncovered. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed dozens more buried structures, including deeper chambers that may never be excavated in our lifetime. What lies beneath the known enclosures could hold even more ancient clues, possibly predating the already mind-bending age of the site itself. Göbekli Tepe is not just the first temple. It may also be the first known place where humans built both above and below the earth, to worship, to gather, and to bury their past. It rewrites not only the origin of religion, but the timeline of architecture, and it does so by hiding its deepest secrets underground. Number 4. In the northwest of Syria, along the banks of the Quake River, lies a site largely overlooked by popular history. Yet it may be one of the oldest known examples of architectural planning on Earth. This is Tel Caramel, a prehistoric settlement dated to as early as 11,000 BCE, predating both Göbekli Tepe and the pyramids by thousands of years. Unlike later grand monuments, Tel Caramel doesn't tower above the land. Its structures sink into it. Excavations beginning in the late 1990s revealed a sequence of circular stone structures, partially buried and layered, forming a series of what appear to be ritual buildings, rebuilt and reused over centuries. The oldest of these buildings shows evidence of continuous use and modification over a span of 2,000 years. The oldest levels of Tel Caramel belong to the Epipaleolithic and pre-pottery Neolithic A periods, before agriculture had fully taken root. Despite that, the site features permanent architecture, including walls built from shaped limestone blocks, internal pillars, benches, and central hearths, all partially sunk into the earth. This subterranean element wasn't just for shelter. It suggests controlled communal space, possibly ritualistic in nature. These underground stone circles were not living quarters, but shared spaces, likely religious or ceremonial. Each new construction phase involved intentionally burying the previous building before building atop it, a practice indicating reverence for what came before. This layering, deliberate, respectful, architectural, suggests that these were not nomadic people. They were builders with memory and with purpose. Tel Caramel forces a reassessment of early human capability. Here, before metal, before writing, and even before full agriculture, people created complex, organized, semi-subterranean spaces. It suggests that architecture didn't begin with kings or cities, but with communities, rituals, and stone circles dug into the ground. Number 5. Deep in the sandstone hills of Madhya Pradesh, central India, lies a site that bridges the world of prehistoric humans and organized settlement, the Bhimbetka rock shelters. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is home to over 700 rock shelters, many of them used as living spaces, ritual zones, and early sanctuaries, some of them carved directly into cliff sides, protected from sun, rain, and time. The oldest human activity at Bhimbetka dates back to at least 100,000 years ago, but its underground and semi-subterranean rock shelters bearing art and architecture are generally dated to between 10,000 BCE and 3,000 BCE, making them far older than Egypt's pyramids. The Bhimbetka caves represent a unique architectural and cultural phenomenon. Early inhabitants used natural rock formations, enhancing them with stone-cut floors, carved niches, hearths, and shelter walls. These weren't merely natural caves. Many were intentionally adapted for human use, showing structural signs of layout planning and repetitive communal use. The walls are adorned with thousands of rock paintings, some faded, others preserved by mineral deposits. These paintings depict hunting scenes, dancing figures, rituals, and everyday life, tracing the cultural evolution of the people who lived there. Unlike surface dwellings that crumble with time, these shelters carved into or protected by stone endured for millennia. Beyond artistic value, Phimbetka demonstrates the adaptive ingenuity of prehistoric societies. They selected and modified natural geological spaces for durability, spiritual use, and community life, creating a kind of proto-architecture. Many of these shelters are partially underground or sunken, using natural depressions and cliffs to create stable living environments long before permanent housing was common elsewhere. The Phimbetka caves challenge the idea that prehistoric life was purely nomadic or simplistic. Here, early humans lived in long-term settlements, invested in ritual expression, and shaped their environments. Long before written language, they left behind records, not in texts or stones stacked high, but in symbols and sanctuaries etched into rock, protected below the surface. Number 6. In the rolling green fields of County Meath Island stands a mound that looks, at first glance, like an ordinary hill. But beneath this ancient facade lies one of Europe's most remarkable underground structures. Newgrange, a Neolithic passage tomb built around 3200 BCE, centuries before the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. Newgrange is not just a tomb. It is a purpose-built subterranean monument engineered with remarkable precision and spiritual intent. The heart of the structure is a 19-meter-long passage leading into a central chamber with a corbelled stone roof that has remained dry and intact for over 5,000 years, without mortar. Constructed from massive stones, some weighing up to 10 tons, the entire structure was buried under an earthen mound nearly 85 meters in diameter. Much of the material was transported from quarries located miles away, indicating coordinated labor, planning, and social organization. The builders were Neolithic farmers, but the sophistication of their construction defies assumptions about primitive societies. What makes Newgrange extraordinary is not just its age, but its astronomical alignment. Each year, during the winter solstice, sunlight enters the narrow passage through a specially designed roof box above the entrance, illuminating the central chamber in a beam of light. For about 17 minutes, the darkness of the tomb is pierced by the rising sun, a deliberate alignment that required both observational knowledge and architectural mastery. The meaning behind this alignment remains speculative. Some suggest it symbolized rebirth or a connection to the afterlife, with the solstice light representing the return of life to the world. Others view it as part of a broader spiritual and seasonal calendar maintained by Neolithic peoples. What's clear is that Newgrange was not merely a burial site. It was a sacred place of cosmic significance. The chamber itself contains stone basins, likely used for ritual offerings or the remains of the dead. Many of the stones within and around the tomb are carved with spirals, lozenges, and other geometric motifs, the meanings of which remain unknown. These markings echo across similar passage tombs in Ireland, but Newgrange remains the largest and most precisely aligned. Rediscovered in the 17th century and excavated in the 20th, Newgrange has become one of the most studied Neolithic sites in the world. Yet despite its exposure, much of its purpose is still cloaked in mystery. Newgrange reminds us that ancient architecture was not always built for the living. Sometimes it was constructed for the dead, the stars, and time itself. Number 7. Scattered across the rocky hills and hidden valleys of Sardinia, an Italian island in the Mediterranean, are thousands of mysterious rock-cut chambers known as Domus de Janus, literally houses of the fairies in Sardinian folklore. But these were no mythical dwellings. They are Neolithic tombs carved directly into solid rock by prehistoric hands between 4000 and 2700 BCE, and they remain among the most unique underground burial systems in Europe. The Domus de Janus are found in clusters, often forming entire necropolis complexes. Each tomb was meticulously excavated using stone tools, forming multi-room burial chambers with carved doorways, walls, and symbolic elements that mimic the layout of real homes. Many of these chambers include false windows, lintels, shelves, and even ceiling beams, all carved in stone. The resemblance to above-ground dwellings suggests a profound belief in the afterlife as a continuation of life. Archaeological finds inside the tombs include ceramic vessels, beads, tools, and human remains, often painted with red ochre, a common ritual element symbolizing life or blood. The interiors of some tombs were also painted with spirals, bullhorns, or geometric patterns, indicating a symbolic or religious function that has long since been lost. Unlike grand monuments built above ground to assert political power, the Domus de Janas were quiet, communal spaces of reverence tucked into hillsides, cliffs, or boulders. Many were designed with narrow entrances and winding corridors, requiring visitors to bend or crawl, perhaps a symbolic act of humility before entering the realm of the dead. While over 2,000 Domus de Janas have been identified, many more remain unexplored or unexcavated. Their construction required precision, patience, and an understanding of stone rarely attributed to Neolithic societies. The enduring mystery of the Domus de Janas lies not just in their age or scale, but in their intimate design. These were not massive ceremonial centers or sky-reaching monuments. They were carefully carved sanctuaries beneath the earth, spaces where the living honored the dead with architecture that mirrored the human home, carved forever into stone. Number 8. High in the Andes Mountains of northern Peru, nestled between two rivers, stands one of South America's oldest and most enigmatic ceremonial centers, Chavin de Huantar. Built between 1200 BCE and 400 BCE, it was a religious and cultural hub for the ancient Chavin civilization, long before the rise of the Inca. Beneath its surface lies an intricate world, a network of subterranean galleries, tunnels, and chambers that reveal a sophisticated understanding of architecture, ritual, and psychological manipulation. At the heart of Chavin de Huantar is the Old Temple, a U-shaped structure built around a sunken plaza. But behind its towering stone facades lies a deliberately hidden experience, a labyrinth of underground passageways that wind through the core of the temple. These galleries, constructed without the use of mortar, are completely dark and narrow, designed to disorient and enclose. They were not used for burial or living. They were ritual spaces, intentionally cut into stone for sensory and symbolic transformation. Within this labyrinth stands the Lanzon, a 15-foot-tall granite monolith carved with a fanged deity, a hybrid of human, feline, bird, and serpent features. Deep underground and accessible only by passage, the Lanzon was likely the focal point of ceremonial practice. Its positioning in pitch darkness, combined with echoing acoustics, may have been used to evoke awe or fear among initiates. Recent studies suggest that Chavin priests engineered the underground galleries to manipulate sound and airflow. Certain galleries create Venturi effects, amplifying rushing water or wind to produce haunting, otherworldly noises. Coupled with the possible use of hallucinogenic plants like San Pedro cactus, it's believed the rituals of Chavin de Huantar were immersive, multisensory, and psychologically intense, enhanced by the deliberate claustrophobia of the underground space. Chavin de Huantar is one of the earliest known cultures in the Americas to construct such subterranean ceremonial infrastructure. Its influence spread across the Andes, shaping religious iconography, architectural styles, and cultural practices for centuries. Today, much of Chavin's underground network remains unexplored. But what's already known shows that its builders used the earth not merely as a foundation, but as a sacred space to transform human perception and connect with the divine. The underground labyrinths of Chavin were not for the dead. They were for the living, undergoing spiritual initiation in the heart of the mountain. Number 9. In the arid deserts of northern Arabia, scattered among the sandstone outcrops of the Hegra region in modern-day Saudi Arabia, lie hundreds of ancient tombs, many of them carved deep into the rock, hidden from view and largely unexplored. Among these are the Ħal-Saflieni Hypogeum, underground burial chambers dating as far back as the first millennium BCE, representing a forgotten layer of Arabia's deep pre-Islamic past. Although overshadowed by the more famous Nabatean tombs of Madain Saleh, the lesser-known hypogea of Al-Salam are distinct in their fully subterranean design. These were not monumental facades carved to be seen from afar. Instead, they were cut into the earth, often covered or buried, and only accessible through narrow descending staircases. The word hypogeum, meaning under the earth in Greek, describes their purpose precisely. These chambers were used as family tombs, with niches carved into the walls to house multiple individuals. The interiors, though modest in decoration compared to Roman or Egyptian tombs, show signs of ritual use and intentional spatial design. Burial goods such as ceramics, weapons, and ornaments have been found, hinting at beliefs in an afterlife that required preparation. Very little is known about the people who built them. They belonged to pre-Islamic Arabian cultures, likely tribal and semi-nomadic, yet capable of organizing sophisticated stonework and long-term funerary customs. Inscriptions in early North Arabian scripts occasionally mark the entrances, offering rare clues to language and lineage. Archaeological access to these sites has been limited due to decades of political restriction and desert inaccessibility. But recent satellite and ground surveys have identified hundreds of buried structures across northern Arabia, many of which may be connected to or similar in design to the Al-Salam Hypogeum. As excavations expand, scholars believe these underground tombs may form part of a vast and still poorly understood ritual landscape stretching across the Arabian Peninsula. The Al-Salam Hypogeum serve as a reminder that even in the harshest environments, ancient peoples found ways to commemorate their dead underground, using earth, stone, and silence to mark their place in time. These tombs, long sealed beneath the desert sand, now whisper a new chapter of Arabian antiquity, one still waiting to be uncovered. Number 10. On the small Mediterranean island of Gozo, part of the Maltese archipelago, lies a site that was lost to history for over 1,000 years. Known as the Zagra Circle, or sometimes the Brockdorf Circle, this underground necropolis dates back to 4100–2500 BCE, placing it among the earliest and most mysterious burial sites in Europe, and making it older than the Egyptian pyramids. Unlike the more visible megalithic temples of Malta, the Zagra Circle is almost entirely subterranean. Originally covered by a circular limestone wall, the site concealed a complex network of underground chambers cut into the bedrock. These were not natural caves. They were deliberately carved, expanded, and shaped by Neolithic builders who sought to bury their dead in what was clearly a sacred space. The site remained unknown until the 1820s, when it was partially unearthed during agricultural work. Excavations revealed human remains, grave goods, and carefully positioned stones. Then, the site was forgotten again, lost beneath layers of soil and time. It wasn't until the 1980s that modern excavations resumed, uncovering the remains of over 800 individuals, along with stone figurines, shell ornaments, and ritual artifacts. The dead were buried communally in carved chambers, often in fetal positions, with ochre staining suggesting symbolic burial rites. The architecture reflects continuity with the nearby Gantija temples, one of the world's oldest freestanding structures, just 400 meters away. But while the temples were for the living, the Zagra Circle was dedicated to the dead beneath the earth. Among the most important finds is the Fat Lady figurine, a symbol of fertility or mother goddess worship found in other Maltese temple sites. This links the Zagra Circle not just to funerary practice, but to a broader belief system centered on regeneration, rebirth, and possibly ancestor veneration. The Zagra Circle's location, secrecy, and construction suggest it was a private spiritual domain, separate from the grand public temples. Its rediscovery has reshaped Malta's prehistoric narrative, revealing a society deeply engaged in both life and death, architecture and ritual, earth and spirit. Number 11. Long before the rise of Rome, central Italy was home to a mysterious and sophisticated civilization, the Etruscans. Their legacy survives not in grand temples or written records. Much of their language remains undeciphered. but in what they left underground. One of the most remarkable examples is the Cappadocia necropolis in Cerveteri, a sprawling city of the dead carved into volcanic tuff rock dating back to the 9th century BCE. Unlike many ancient burial sites, the tombs of Cerveteri weren't just graves. They were stone houses for the afterlife. Entire neighborhoods of subterranean tombs were carved to mirror the architecture of the living. Inside, visitors find stone beds, chairs, columns, and even carved ceiling beams, all cut from the bedrock. These tombs weren't meant to isolate the dead. They were designed to house them eternally in familiar surroundings. The most iconic tombs, such as the Tomb of the Reliefs, are elaborately decorated with carved and painted items of daily life. Shields, swords, tools, and even kitchen utensils, sculpted in high relief on the walls. These weren't symbolic. They reflected the belief that the afterlife was a continuation of earthly existence. The dead were to be buried with the comforts and protections of their former world. The necropolis stretches over 400 hectares, with thousands of tombs spanning several centuries of Etruscan society. Tombs vary in size and complexity, from simple chamber graves to multi-roomed family mausoleums, some with monumental mounds above ground, others entirely hidden beneath the earth. Though looted and weathered over time, excavations have revealed frescoes, pottery, bronze artifacts, and inscriptions, offering glimpses into Etruscan customs, trade, and beliefs. The architecture and artistry of these tombs demonstrate a level of urban planning and spiritual thought rarely associated with pre-Roman Italy. The Cappadocia necropolis isn't just a burial ground. It's one of the oldest and largest examples of underground city planning in the ancient world. It shows that the Etruscans saw death not as an end, but as a transition to another life, one that required shelter, protection, and community, all of which they provided, carved quietly into the earth. Number 12. In the ancient city of Gyeongju, South Korea, grassy mounds rise silently across the landscape, unassuming from a distance, yet monumental in significance. These are the subterranean tombs of the Silla dynasty, a kingdom that ruled parts of the Korean peninsula from 57 BCE to 935 CE. Beneath each mound lies a sealed world of royal burials, engineering ingenuity, and clues to a kingdom that once dominated East Asia. The tombs were constructed using a stone chamber and earth-fill technique. First, a wooden coffin was placed in a pit, then surrounded by a chamber of massive river stones. After burial goods were added, including gold crowns, weapons, and ceramics, the chamber was covered with layers of clay, gravel, and finally, an earthen mound, forming the rounded silhouettes seen today. The result was not just a grave, but a sealed underground vault, untouched by time or looters for centuries. Unlike pyramid-style tombs or open burial chambers, Silla tombs were completely encased in earth, with no entrances. This created a highly stable environment, allowing organic materials like silk, wood, and lacquerware to survive, a rarity in ancient archaeology. The tombs functioned as time capsules, preserving the artistry, religion, and social structure of early Korean civilization. One of the most famous examples is Cheonmachong, or Heavenly Horse Tomb, excavated in 1973. Inside, archaeologists discovered over 10,000 artifacts, including a golden crown with tree-like antlers, jeweled belts, and a painted saddle flap featuring a flying white horse, one of the earliest known Korean artworks. The Silla tombs reflect a deep spiritual and cosmological worldview. The round shape of the mounds may symbolize the heavens, while the burial chambers beneath represent the connection between the earthly and spiritual realms. These underground sanctuaries were not just tombs, they were portals to the afterlife, designed to honor and protect Korea's ancient royals for eternity. Gyeongju's tombs remain among the best-preserved underground royal burials in East Asia. They are a testament to the Silla dynasty's power, artistry, and belief that what lies beneath the earth is just as sacred and enduring as what stands above it. Number 13. On the remote Orkney Islands of northern Scotland, where wind lashes the sea-beaten landscape and winters stretch long and cold, lies a prehistoric monument that has defied time. Mae Seo, a Neolithic chambered cairn constructed around 2800 BCE, older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza. From the outside, Mae Seo appears as a grassy mound, blending into the natural terrain. But beneath that mound lies a carefully engineered stone tomb, built with astonishing precision. A 14-metre-long entrance passage, aligned with the setting sun of the winter solstice, leads to a central chamber constructed from massive, tightly fitted stone slabs. The architecture is not only functional, it is astronomically exact. Each year, for a few days around December 21st, sunlight travels through the passage and illuminates the back wall of the tomb. This solar alignment suggests a deep understanding of celestial cycles among Neolithic builders, and points to the spiritual or symbolic significance of the winter sun's return. Inside, the main chamber contains 3 side cells, built into the walls, likely used for placing cremated remains or burial offerings. While no bodies were found during the first excavations in the 19th century, the tomb's function as a place of the dead is undisputed. More intriguingly, the walls bear Norse runic inscriptions carved by Viking visitors who broke into the tomb around the 12th century CE. These are among the largest and best preserved collections of runes in the British Isles, a rare meeting of 2 ancient worlds in one underground place. Mae Seo is not alone. It's part of a wider prehistoric landscape, including the nearby Ring of Brodgar and Skara Brae, forming a Neolithic complex of ceremonial and domestic life. These interconnected sites suggest that Mae Seo was both a tomb and a ritual observatory, playing a central role in the cultural life of Orkney's early settlers. Today, Mae Seo remains one of Europe's most important prehistoric structures, a timeless chamber carved in stone, designed to catch the last light of the darkest day. It speaks of death, yes, but also of continuity, rebirth, and the eternal dialogue between humans and the cosmos. Number 14. In the flat plains of central Anatolia, in present-day Turkey, lie the remains of one of the world's oldest known urban settlements, Çatalhöyük. Occupied from around 7500 BCE to 5700 BCE, this Neolithic site reveals a dense, interconnected city without streets, where homes were built side by side and accessed from rooftops. But the most startling discovery at Çatalhöyük wasn't found above ground. It was found beneath the floors. Excavations beginning in the 1960s revealed that the inhabitants of Çatalhöyük buried their dead inside their own homes. Beneath the plastered floors of living quarters, archaeologists uncovered subterranean burial enclosures containing the remains of family members, often layered, sometimes rearranged, and always carefully placed. In some houses, more than 60 individuals were buried over generations. These burials weren't haphazard. Bodies were often placed in fetal positions, wrapped in textiles, and stained with red ochre, a symbolic pigment associated with life, death, and regeneration. In some cases, skulls were removed and later reburied, possibly used in ancestor rituals or displayed during ceremonies. The decision to place the dead beneath the living was more than practical. It was cultural and symbolic. At Çatalhöyük, death was not removed from daily life. It was integrated into it. Ancestors remained literally underfoot, a constant presence in domestic spaces. This practice suggests a worldview in which the living and dead coexisted, and memory was preserved through physical proximity. Some homes at Çatalhöyük show signs of ritual activity tied to these burials. Wall paintings, bullhorn installations, and symbolic plaster reliefs suggest that certain households held spiritual or social significance, perhaps tied to the ancestors buried beneath them. Çatalhöyük's underground burial customs mark a unique form of urban life, one without palaces or temples, but deeply spiritual nonetheless. Instead of building upward in grandeur, the people of Çatalhöyük built inward and downward, embedding their social and sacred life in the very earth they walked on. Number 15. Just outside modern-day Mexico City, the ancient city of Teotihuacan rises in monumental silence. Its wide avenues, towering pyramids, and sprawling plazas speak to one of the most powerful civilizations in Mesoamerican history. But beneath this ancient metropolis lies a hidden underworld, a series of engineered tunnels and chambers that reveal how the people of Teotihuacan understood death, power, and the cosmos. At the heart of these discoveries is a tunnel beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, also known as the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. Rediscovered in 2003, the tunnel extends over 100 meters beneath the temple, sealed off nearly 2,000 years ago. Over a decade of excavation revealed a deliberately designed subterranean complex. Not a natural cave, but a carefully cut and reinforced passage, lined with walls of carved stone and embedded with minerals like pyrite and hematite to reflect light. This tunnel wasn't used for burial or living space. It was ceremonial. Researchers found thousands of artifacts, statues, jade, obsidian knives, rubber balls, and even liquid mercury, likely used in symbolic rituals. At the tunnel's end, archaeologists discovered 3 chambers, possibly representing the underworld or mythological realms of creation. The layout suggests that the tunnel was used to simulate a journey into the cosmic underworld, with participants moving from darkness into light. Teotihuacan's entire city design may have reflected cosmological principles, and the tunnels below its pyramids mirrored that belief. A separate tunnel was also discovered beneath the Pyramid of the Sun, though much of it remains unexcavated. These subterranean features weren't add-ons. They were integral to the spiritual and political identity of the city. Unlike the Maya or Aztecs, the original builders of Teotihuacan left behind no written language, and their rulers remain nameless. Yet, through the architecture they left above and below ground, they communicated a worldview in which life, death, and the universe were deeply interconnected, and where sacred journeys began not in the sky, but beneath the earth. Teotihuacan's tunnels continue to challenge archaeologists. As technology slowly reveals their full extent, one thing is clear. For the people of this great city, the true heart of power and creation may have always been underground. Number 16. Just off the coast of Mumbai, on a forested island in the Arabian Sea, lies a series of caves that hold one of India's most remarkable examples of ancient rock-cut architecture, the Elephanta Caves. Carved directly into basalt rock sometime between the 5th and 8th centuries CE, these subterranean shrines are a stunning fusion of Hindu spirituality, architectural precision, and artistic mastery, all hidden beneath the earth. The caves are divided into 2 main groups, 5 Hindu caves and 2 Buddhist caves, though the Hindu caves are the most elaborate. The centerpiece is Cave 1, also known as the Great Cave, a vast, pillared hall leading to multiple shrines and sculptural panels. At the heart of the cave is a massive relief of Trimurti Shiva, a 20-foot-high, 3-faced depiction of the god representing creation, preservation, and destruction, one of the most iconic images in Indian religious art. Unlike freestanding temples, the Elephanta shrines are entirely subterranean, carved top-down into living rock. Columns, ceilings, sanctums, and sculptures were all chiseled from a single geological formation, requiring immense planning and skill. The process of excavation likely took decades, if not centuries, completed by artisans and devotees who worked in near-total darkness using oil lamps and rudimentary tools. The spiritual function of the caves went beyond worship. The darkness, echoing acoustics, and enclosed environment were integral to the ritual experience. Here, devotees would retreat from the chaos of the outside world into a space meant to symbolize inner transformation, a metaphorical and literal descent into the sacred. Though the original patrons remain uncertain, possibly the Kalachuri or Chalukya dynasties, the Elephanta caves reflect a deep connection between architecture, theology, and the earth itself. Even today, the caves serve as a pilgrimage site, echoing with chants during annual festivals, continuing a tradition nearly 2,500 years old. The Elephanta cave shrines are a powerful reminder that in ancient India, the divine was not always built skyward. Sometimes it was carved into the stone beneath our feet, hidden away in sacred silence. Number 17. Long before the rise of classical civilizations in Europe, the islands of Malta and Gozo were home to a culture that carved stone with extraordinary skill. Among their enduring contributions are the Tarxian temples, a complex of above-ground and subterranean structures dating from around 3150 to 2500 BCE. But buried beneath and around these temples lie underground tombs, chambers that offer rare insight into prehistoric spirituality, ritual, and belief in the afterlife. The Tarxian culture, is known for its megalithic architecture. While much of the temple structures remain visible today, the tombs were intentionally concealed, carved into limestone, and sealed beneath earth and rubble. Some were discovered by China, archaeologists have uncovered a Neolithic site that remained buried for millennia. A complex of subterranean structures tied to one of East Asia's earliest known ritual traditions. This site is Beifudi, occupied from around 6500 to 5000 BCE, and it offers a rare glimpse into how early Chinese communities blended daily life, spirituality, and underground space. Beifudi was first excavated in the early 2000s, and its discovery surprised historians. Alongside the remains of homes and kilns, archaeologists unearthed semi-subterranean ritual platforms, ceremonial pits, and stone-carved masks, some of the oldest religious artifacts ever found in China. These features indicate that Beifudi was more than a settlement. It was a sacred landscape, partly hidden below the surface. The underground components include oval-shaped ritual spaces carved directly into the earth. Within them, researchers found evidence of animal sacrifices, burned offerings, and what appear to be early altars. These structures were intentionally constructed below ground level, not for shelter, but for spiritual purposes, indicating the community's belief in the importance of the earth as a sacred element. Perhaps most intriguing are the stone masks, some with exaggerated facial features buried within or near these subterranean pits. Their exact purpose remains debated, but scholars suggest they may have been used in shamanic ceremonies or ancestor rituals. Their presence and deliberate burial suggests a symbolic dialogue between the living and the spirits beneath the earth. Unlike the towering temples or monumental tombs of later Chinese dynasties, Beifudi's sacred spaces were subdued and hidden, part of the landscape rather than imposed upon it. They reflect a worldview rooted in earth, ancestry, and the cyclical nature of life and death. Though still under excavation and relatively unknown outside academic circles, Beyfoudi challenges assumptions about where and how complex religious behavior began in East Asia. It shows that long before written records or imperial states, early humans carved their spirituality not into stone monuments, but into the soil itself. Number 19. In the heart of central Turkey, the volcanic landscape of Cappadocia rises in strange, otherworldly shapes. Soft, tough cones, towering fairy chimneys, and eroded rock valleys. Beneath this surreal terrain lies one of the most extensive and strategically engineered subterranean systems on Earth. The Cappadocian cave complexes, carved over thousands of years for survival, spirituality, and sanctuary. While the most famous of these is Derinkuyu, Cappadocia is home to dozens of interconnected underground cities, rock-cut monasteries, and cave churches. These structures were not the work of a single civilization, but rather a layered legacy, shaped by the Hittites, Phrygians, early Christians, and Byzantine communities. Carved directly into the region's soft volcanic tuff, these underground networks include residential quarters, communal kitchens, stables, wineries, cisterns, ventilation shafts, and places of worship. The depth and complexity of some cities, with levels extending more than 60 meters underground, suggest a long-term plan of defense, especially during times of invasion or religious persecution. In the early centuries of Christianity, Cappadocia became a refuge. Fleeing Roman persecution, Christian communities carved entire monasteries and chapels underground, complete with altars, baptistries, and intricate frescoes. Some of the best preserved examples can be found in the Göreme Open-Air Museum, where colorful biblical scenes still adorn cave walls carved more than 1,000 years ago. What sets Cappadocia apart isn't just the scale of its underground spaces, but their purposeful integration with the landscape. Hidden entrances, narrow corridors, and stone doors made these cities nearly impenetrable. They served as both homes and fortresses, capable of supporting thousands of people during prolonged sieges. Over time, the underground spaces evolved from defensive shelters into permanent places of faith and community. Even today, some Cappadocian villages still utilize ancient cave homes, a rare continuity of human habitation stretching back centuries. The cave complexes of Cappadocia reveal a remarkable truth. When faced with adversity, ancient people didn't always look to the sky for protection. They turned inward and downward, transforming the earth itself into a sanctuary, one where faith, life, and survival could endure, hidden beneath stone. Number 20. In the shadow of Egypt's Great Pyramid complexes lies a tomb unlike any other. Not a towering monument reaching into the sky, but a labyrinth carved deep beneath the desert floor. This is the tomb of Senwosret III, one of ancient Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, located at Abydos and dating to the 19th century BCE, nearly 500 years after the Great Pyramid of Giza, yet astonishing in a different way. Senwosret III, a ruler of the Middle Kingdom's 12th dynasty, was known for his military campaigns and administrative reforms, but also for redefining royal burial practices. Rather than building a monumental pyramid tomb as his predecessors had done, he commissioned a hidden subterranean complex beneath a desert plateau, a decision that speaks volumes about shifting attitudes toward death, security, and the afterlife. Excavated in the early 20th century and again in more detail in the early 2000s, the tomb is a marvel of ancient engineering. It features a long descending passageway, massive quartzite burial chamber, blind corridors, false doors, and interlocking granite plugs meant to deter tomb robbers. At over 200 meters in length, it rivals the complexity of any pyramid substructure, yet it was never intended to be visible above ground. The architecture reflects a desire for concealment and protection rather than overt display. The burial chamber itself was sealed with blocks weighing over 40 tons, and evidence suggests the tomb was completed, used, and then deliberately buried. an intentional act to keep it hidden for eternity. Though looted in antiquity, the tomb's design has revealed insights into Middle Kingdom religious beliefs. It was aligned with Abydos, the sacred city of Osiris, god of the underworld, suggesting Senwosret III saw his burial as more than political. It was a spiritual pilgrimage, merging his legacy with that of divine myth. What makes this tomb extraordinary is not just its scale or secrecy, but what it represents: a departure from the era of sky-reaching monuments and a return to the depths of the earth. It reflects a shift in Egyptian thinking, one where immortality was no longer declared in stone above, but preserved in silence below. Number 21. The Hypogeum of Via Livenza, Rome, Italy. Beneath the bustling modern streets of Rome, hidden behind an unassuming door in an apartment courtyard, lies one of Italy's most mysterious and little-known underground sanctuaries, the Hypogeum of Via Livenza. Discovered in 1923 during construction work, this subterranean structure dates to the 4th century CE and likely served as a Christian or pagan ritual site, possibly related to water worship or healing rites. Carved directly into soft tufa rock, the Hypogeum features a central chamber with a spring-fed basin, flanked by smaller rooms and niches. The presence of running water, combined with the architectural layout, has led archaeologists to believe it was used for baptisms, purification rituals, or other sacred ceremonies. Its symbolic blend of earth and water gives the space a liminal, almost mystical character, a sacred grotto beneath the city. The walls of the chamber contain faded Christian graffiti and symbolic carvings, including crosses and possibly early representations of saints, suggesting it was repurposed over time. Earlier use may have been pagan, linked to local water deities, before being adopted by early Christian communities during the transition from Roman polytheism. Unlike Rome's grand catacombs or temples, the Via Livenza Hypogeum is small, quiet, and intimate. A sacred space carved not to impress, but to connect. Its location beneath residential buildings reflects a time when worship moved underground, both literally and figuratively, during periods of religious transformation and secrecy. Today, the Hypogeum remains closed to the general public, accessible only by special permission, preserving its air of forgotten sanctity. Yet it stands as a powerful reminder. Even in the heart of one of history's greatest cities, spirituality often found refuge not above, but beneath the earth.